Hey guys, welcome to the Massive Iron Channel. I'm Steve Shaw. In this video, I'm joined with I'm joined with Robert Shenetsky. I don't know what I'm doing, Robert. We're going to talk about how to choose a pre-workout. Before we get into that topic, if you have any questions or comments, drop them down below. The best topic ideas I turn into videos just like this. All right, before we get started, there's a link down below to Robert's supplement assessment service. If you want to make sure that you are getting the most out of your supplement plan, save money, get the best quality, check out that link down below. All right, Robert, it's been a while since we've talked about pre-workouts. Pre-workouts are the last thing on my mind. I get a lot of pre-workout questions. 2020, post-quarantine-ish. Robert, how do you choose a pre-workout? Somebody comes to you and says, "Dear Robert, the supplement engineer, how do I choose a pre-workout?"
I think we should begin this by saying that there is no best pre-workout, because a lot of the times when I'm fielding pre-workout questions, it's, well, hey man, what's the best pre-workout? And there really is no best. Kind of like when you get bombarded with what's the best workout question, Steve.
Right.
There is no best. It's what is most appropriate or what fits the purpose for which you're intending its use. So if you are like an endurance athlete, I'm not going to recommend some like light your balls on fire pre-workout that's got 600 milligrams of caffeine and 250 milligrams of urea gerancis extract and hordenine and hygenamine and all these other things in it. It's going to be something that's a little bit more lower stemmed. It's going to be something that's got a little bit more endurance boosting slant to it. Some things that have either nitrates in them or other kind of polyphenols that'll improve blood flow and nitric oxide production, and also maybe have some kind of buffering capacities as well. So it's very individualized to what your training is, and also what is your sensitivity to caffeine. So I think when we're starting to identify what is the best pre-workout for an individual, let's start just from the very get-go by, do you want caffeine in it or not? Do you respond well to caffeine? Are you already having caffeine other sources of your day? Do you want more caffeine? What do you not? Also, let's focus on what time of day you're training. If you're training at 7 o'clock at night and you're going to bed at 9 or 10 o'clock at night, you probably don't want a caffeinated pre-workout, at least nothing that's going to be over 100 milligrams or so, especially if you're sensitive to caffeine. So those are some things that we need to figure out. From there, we need to next focus on what else are you looking for from your pre-workout. So we figured out, do you want caffeine or not? And then let's go over the caffeine load. Most pre-workouts on the day, they're starting to average around like 300 milligrams. You've still got some beginner pre-workouts on the market like C4 or something that have 150 to 200 milligrams per scoop. And that's fine. If you're just looking for like a widely available, cheap pre-workout that just gives you a little bump of caffeine to get you in the mood to work out, that's perfectly fine. You don't need to go and spend $60, $70 on some of these pre-workouts that have the scoop size that would rival a measuring cup in your kitchen.
Hey, Robert, I'm going to stop you just for a second.
Yeah.
Regarding caffeine, what someone might be asking the question, how much is too much for me? What's kind of the upper level? Because some of these pre-workouts can be like rocket fuel. So if somebody gets up in the morning, has a couple cups of coffee, a Monster energy drink, how much caffeine are they going to have at that point? And should they ram it with like a 400 milligram, caffeine dose in a pre-workout?
Most of the health advisory boards recommend an upper intake limit of 400 milligrams per day, but that's just kind of an arbitrary selection, because we've had numerous studies conducted in healthy individuals that are resistance training and doing cardio and all other kinds of endurance exercise, where they're dosing them with caffeine loads between 3 milligrams to 6 milligrams per kilogram. So if you've got 100 kg athletes, so they're around 200, 225 pounds, that's upwards of 600 milligrams of caffeine in one single dose. And they've used doses even as high as 9 milligrams per kilogram in male athletes and in female athletes, doing things that are very cardiovascularly intensive, like judo and Brazilian jiu-jitsu, mixed martial arts as well. So, the ergogenic benefits of caffeine are really noticeable, but in the 3 milligram to 6 milligram per kilogram range. Now, if you're somebody that is fueled on caffeine during the day, you're probably going to be less affected by a high load caffeine pre-workout than somebody that isn't used to taking a lot of caffeine. That doesn't mean that you need to take that much, but it's more along the lines of, you would probably be more able to handle it better than somebody that is not used to taking a lot of caffeine, then all of a sudden slamming themselves with pre-workout that's got between 400 and 600 milligrams of caffeine.
So, regarding caffeine, Robert, I'm going to do a follow up question. There's different types of caffeine in pre workouts. How does somebody sort through this and choose what's going to be best for them?
So the most common forms you're going to see are caffeine anhydrous, which is the synthetically derived form of caffeine. It doesn't have any water attached to it, so that's what the anhydrous means. That is the very fast acting, very kind of like hard, immediate hitting caffeine that you're going to find in most pre-workouts. You'll also come across something called Infinergy, which is dicaffeine malate. And this is going to be a combination of caffeine and malic acid, which that is a naturally occurring organic acid that's found in apples and a bunch of other plant foods. The combination of this makes caffeine a little bit easier on the stomach. So anybody that's drank a lot of coffee or had some very high stim pre-workouts there know that that can often lead to some tummy upset and GI distress, leading them to have to run to the bathroom. The Infinergy, the dicaffeine malate, has a more sustained release and it's a little bit softer on the stomach. So, but the issue with that is not issue, but the difference is that caffeine anhydrous is basically just pure caffeine. Dicaffeine malate is around 73 to 75% caffeine. So if you're taking 100 milligrams of dicaffeine malate, it's actually going to yield 73 milligrams of caffeine, which is a little less than about your average cup of coffee, which is somewhere in the 80 to 100 milligram range. You'll also have caffeine citrate, which is a 50% caffeine yield. So that's a combination of caffeine and citric acid. So if you take 100 milligrams of that, you'll get 50 milligrams of caffeine and then 50 milligrams of citric acid. Then they've also got natural caffeine derived from green tea, which there's not really a ton of studies done on just this isolated form of caffeine compared to coffee or caffeine anhydrous. A lot of the marketing literature around it says it's a smoother release caffeine or smoother feeling caffeine. How true that actually is, that's going to be mostly left to individual perception and interpretation.
So, Robert, I don't mean to lead the dance here, but I'm gonna throw this question your way. Once we get past caffeine and stimulants, can we compartmentalize what the other ingredients are for those watching? Like, okay, we have caffeine, which we know the function is. What are the other components of a typical pre-workout, like pump? Then we have things like creatine and beta alanine, which are kind of energy performance. What are the different? Can we compartmentalize the different aspects of a pre-workout, and what are they? What are the main focuses of a pre-workout?
Yeah, so the four pillars that most pre-workouts are designed to address are energy, pumps, performance, and focus. So focus are going to be your nootropics, where caffeine plays into that a little bit, but you're also going to have some other agents in there like an alpha GPC or huperzine for acetylcholine production, which is going to help with the mind-muscle connection, and it's also the learning neurotransmitter, so it'll make you feel a little more focused and dialed in. You might also find something like an L-tyrosine or an N-acetyl L-tyrosine, which is the less bioavailable form that I wish most supplement companies would just kind of get rid of. The L-tyrosine form is much more bioavailable. In terms of the pump side of things, you will find ingredients like citrulline or citrulline malate. In those terms, you want to find, and that's going to promote blood flow, nitric oxide production. It's also going to help with a little bit of ammonia buffering in the body and to get rid of some of the acidic ions that build up, which is kind of also works in tandem with beta alanine, which is another performance ingredient. So they'll work anytime you're improving blood flow, you're going to improve metabolite clearance in the body. And that's going to help remove all of those things that are generated during muscle contractions. So from the pump side, ingredients to look for are L-citrulline or citrulline malate. With L-citrulline, you want to dose between 3 to 8 or 9 grams. Citrulline malate, you want 6 to 8 grams. Citrulline malate is usually equal parts citrulline and malic acid, so you're going to need a higher dose of citrulline malate compared to just regular bulk L-citrulline. Some other good ingredients to look for on the pump side are glycerol-based supplements like Hydromax or Glycercize or Glycerpump. This is going to help your cells absorb more water, which will help create a state of hyperhydration, improve hydration levels in the body, cell volumization, improve your ability to train for longer before succumbing to fatigue. So it's kind of a dual pump / endurance performance ingredient, but most of the time it's lumped inside the pump complex of formulas, as is taurine, although you could make the argument that taurine is another kind of performance-based ingredient as well. We've also got agmatine in the pump complex, which is going to kind of complement the actions of citrulline and its ability to stimulate nitric oxide production in the body. And in tandem with that, you'll also have grape skin polyphenols, Vaso-6, grapeseed extract, those kind of things.
So, Robert, I got a couple more questions for you, and I think they're obviously one has to do with creatine and beta alanine, common ingredients, and I'm going to pose that question first, and then the second question I want to toss your way is, what are some ingredients, and don't dive into this yet, but what are some ingredients that are commonly tossed into a pre-workout that are basically useless or unnecessary or redundant, etc.? So let's start with the first question. Creatine and beta alanine, they seem to be in a lot of pre-workouts. Creatine, number one, is it enough? Are you getting enough in your pre-workout? Okay, based on what we know. And number two, is the beta alanine in there doing anything in concert with creatine, or is it just kind of stuffed in there to make you all tingly?
I would say for the vast majority of pre-workouts that are putting creatine in there, it's not enough. You need between 3 to 5 grams a day, and most pre-workouts typically put 1 to 3 grams, if that, or they'll use like the creatine hydrochloride form, and that's 1.5 or 2 grams of it. So by and large, most creatine is underdosed in pre-workouts. If you're going to do it all the way. There are a select few pre-workouts on the market that do put the full 3 or 5 gram dose on there, but you're going to have to look. So, and that brings us to the next point of, by and large, avoid prop blends, so you actually know what in the hell you're paying for and what you're putting in your body. With prop blends, the ingredients, there's no reason to cloak ingredients. We know what ingredients work. We know the efficacious dosages of those ingredients, especially along the lines of creatine, beta alanine, caffeine, citrulline malate. So if those kind of ingredients are prop blended in your pre-workout, just pass on it and go just buy like an energy drink or some other kind of like cheap pre-workout, because those prop blended ones are really not necessary at all.
I just want to interject real quick, Robert. Mm-hmm. For those keeping score at home that don't speak our language, a prop blend is a proprietary blend. It's a bunch of chemicals put together in some magical combination that no one has any clue what that magical combination is unless they divulge it. So you could get some pixie dusting or a lot of opportunities for bullshittery. Sorry, Robert, go ahead.
No, that's correct. Right, well said, Steve. Towards beta alanine, it's very much like creatine in that you have to be saturated in order to derive any benefits from it. So just taking it once or twice a week before your workout is not going to do you any benefit outside of giving you the tingles. And that's the reason most companies put it in there along with niacin, is that you put a large dose of beta alanine, you put a large dose of niacin in a pre-workout alongside 300 milligrams of caffeine. Your face is going to be on fire. Your ears are going to be tingling. Your lips are going to be tingling. You're going to get this flush sensation. So you're going to be under the perception that this pre-workout is really hitting hard. It's got to be doing a whole lot of shit. And in reality, it's not doing anything outside of the caffeine. So beta alanine, if it's dosed properly, it's not going to do any harm, but you're not going to get any benefit, where companies could remove that and put in some other kind of beneficial ingredient in there, or improve the doses of the other ingredients that are already included in there. So I consider beta alanine and creatine filler ingredients in a pre-workout. They don't deserve any purpose in a pre-workout. The entire purpose of a pre-workout is to improve your performance in the workout that's about to happen as soon as you finish drinking your last sip of pre-workout. So those kind of ingredients don't really do much for me.
Right. That's kind of why I posed that second question first after creatine and beta alanine, because obviously Robert knows this, and I hope most of you guys watching this know this, but creatine and beta alanine are best used in the long run. You have to use them every single day. Beta alanine, I believe it's best taken 3 or 4 times a day, spaced out, if you want to get technical about it. Dropping them in a pre-workout doesn't do shit if you're not taking them every single day. All it does is make you feel good, give you some tingles. Your nipples are erect. You're getting all tingly. Unless you're taking creatine and beta alanine every day, you're pretty much screwed, which leads me to the second question: which ingredients are commonly put in a pre-workout which are useless? And that's kind of why I phrased that after creatine and beta alanine.
I would say BCAAs are at the top of the list. Another common one is beetroot extract. A lot of times these companies will put in 250 to 500 milligrams of beetroot extract, and they'll say that, beets are high in nitrates, which will activate a separate nitric oxide pathway in the body, separate from what citrulline is going to affect. The issue is that beetroot extracts, by and large, contain trace amounts of nitrates, nowhere near enough to get any kind of tangible or meaningful boost in nitric oxide production. So that's a filler ingredient just for window dressing. Beta alanine is useful, but for the average lifter, I don't think it serves much purpose if they're only doing like 8 to 12 repetitions and then resting 2 to 3 minutes. That's a filler ingredient. Creatine, if dosed properly, fine, but it's a filler ingredient just to increase the overall scoop size. Most people aren't going to be taking their pre-workout every day, and most of the products on the market don't, adequately dose creatine to begin with.
So I want to hop next onto quality, because we've discussed quality. The average person that goes on the internet, that they're looking for a pre-workout, and they might search pre-workouts on Amazon or Google, and then all of a sudden every other ad they get everywhere on the internet is a pre-workout, right?
Right.
And they're all of a sudden shoveled a lot of shit and a lot of shit claims and a lot of shit products, and they're looking at 100 different pre-workouts, and they're completely confused, right? Which it would confuse me.
Yeah.
How do you sort through the claims? How do you sort through the whole sea of pre-workouts? And, which companies should you gravitate to? Which should you avoid? And is it worth paying a little bit more for quality?
Easy thing to start off from the beginning is avoiding prop blends. That'll filter out a huge demographic of the pre-workouts that are on Amazon if you're going there. Just avoid the stuff with the prop blends because it's going to be underdosed. It's the companies complex these stimulants in a very small scoop. It costs $3 or $4 to make. They're selling it for $30, $40 a pop. You're getting glorified, tasty caffeine powder. That's it. So we'll start there at the base. Avoid just prop blends.
So I just want to add the reason why most of these companies put in a proprietary blend is just that, because it saves them a lot of money on their products, and they can still put that ingredient on the label.
Yeah. The next thing is just when you're reading through the ad copy on this, and I mean, I've written enough pre-workout ad copies across the industry to know that some companies tend to oversell their pre-workouts. They'll say, oh, well, this boosts muscle growth by 9.8 pounds. This improves nitric oxide production by 486%. When you see companies making outlandish claims like that, take everything you read with a grain of salt. Sure, the pre-workout might be dosed properly, but if your lead-in thing is to start trying to deceive or pull the wool over the eyes of the consumer, or make it seem like it's this much more important than actually eating right and training hard, that are already gets my antennas kind of up and moving around.
Can I interject on the yeah. percentages in the studies? People need to understand that some of these studies, and I've seen them myself in my time in the industry, it might say 29% more muscle boosting capacity than whatever. But that 29% in the actual study might be so scientifically negligible and ridiculous and arbitrary and small. 29% sounds like a huge boost, but 29% of zero is zero.
Yeah, that's one thing that's going to be hard for the average consumer. I mean, I don't know, this goes without saying that anybody listening to this, if you have a question about a pre-workout, send me an email, send me an instant message, send me something. I'll help you kind of weed through the bullshit, because if you're somebody that's just getting into this, it is very, very easy to get duped for stuff. I mean, I made the same mistakes, when I first got into the industry, or when I just started using supplements in general. I tried a whole bunch of different things, and I fell prey to a lot of the marketing claims because it sounds great. It sounds sexy. Hey, this pre-workout's going to, light my balls on fire. It's going to make me train 6 hours a day without ever needing a break. It's going to grow 10 pounds of muscle on me. And then you start to realize it, and you realize, I mean, the thing that's really doing the majority of the work here is the caffeine. So what are the avenues can we do besides just heaping on more and more caffeine? Stick with reputable brands. You and I have discussed reputable brands enough on our interviews that we weekly do. If somebody has a question about it, feel free to send me an issue. You can't really give a blanket across the board answer, because some companies, they will be good companies, but they might have a really crappy pre-workout, or some companies will have multiple tiers of pre-workouts. They'll have their premium one, like their Cadillac. Then they'll have like the Honda Civic version. So then you got to kind of understand what are you going for, and then realize cost to benefit. And it's going to take some experimentation at the end of the day to figure out which one is actually best for you. What do you like? What do you want in your pre-workout? Do you like really pump heavy formulas, or do you want something lower stim? Do you want a lot of focus in it? It's going to be a little bit of give and take.
So, Robert, let's talk about non-stim pre-workouts. What are your general thoughts on non-stim pre-workouts. There's not as many out there. Do you think they're worth consideration?
Yeah, I think if you're somebody that trains late at night, or if you're somebody that is sensitive to caffeine, we've got enough data on some of these other nutrients that are placed in pre-workouts to that they can help you get that extra couple of reps that you're looking to get in your training, be it resistance training or athletic performance. So a lot of the times what you're going to see in these things is a pretty hefty dose of citrulline or citrulline malate. You're going to see some nootropics in there, like the ones that I mentioned earlier, alpha GPC, huperzine, tyrosine, those things. Glycerol ingredients like Hydromax and Glycerpump will be commonly put in there. L-tyrosine for some added focus boosting again. Beta alanine is going to be put in there most of the time, just because if people don't feel, if the average consumer doesn't really feel a product quote unquote working, they're not going to come back and buy it. So companies will put that beta alanine in there for no other reason than just to help simulate that experience that the product is going to hit a little bit harder. They might be getting some kind of boost from it. They might feel something to give them that extra little intrinsic motivation to go and train harder.
So you talk about feeling, and that's an interesting thing. I've been in the game long enough where, some pre-workouts, I take them and I just feel like I'm just doing my normal workout. There are some that I take where at the end of the workout, I realize like I could just keep going. I just feel like I could keep going. And on a one-off workout like that doesn't mean anything, right? But there are some pre-workouts that I've taken over the years that when I take them, I almost feel like this every workout. Like I feel like I could keep going. I don't always know if that's placebo or what, but when you're an old ass guy like me and you take a pre-workout and you feel like you can keep going, I generally tend to stick with that pre-workout. What are some of the things people should look for when trying to decide whether to toss a pre-workout or keep a pre-workout?
See how it makes you feel. Do you feel like, because a lot of times with these especially high stim pre-workouts, and if you pair it with something like a high intensity day, like a leg day or a back day, there's so many stimulants in here that you're going to spend more time trying to recover your breath and not, get so winded during training than actually being able to overload your muscle. So, is a pre-workout making you feel jittery? Is it making you feel anxious? Do you feel completely depleted after the workout? And, being exhausted at a muscular level is completely different than feeling like zapped from like a central nervous standpoint, where you just get this horrendous, like bottoming out crash effect from the stimulant profile that's in the pre-workout. So, if your pre-workout is making you feel irritated, anxious, jittery, you feel completely bottomed out at the end of the pre-workout, I would tend to avoid using those, and make sure, this also caveats with get enough of a track record to see what workouts are you feeling like that. How was your nutrition going into the workout? How was your sleep the night before? Because all of this is going to play into it. You can't always just blame things on the pre-workout. If you got 1 hour of sleep and you've been sleeping like shit in the week leading up to it, and your diet has been all over the place, you can't expect the pre-workout to be this elixir or this nectar of the gods that's going to give you the strength of Samson and Hercules combined to dominate your workout. So as good as pre-workouts can be for helping you push harder in your training, they can't be this panacea or this miracle cure that's going to make it if you're not doing all these other things as well. Now, when it comes to ditching a pre-workout, just use some subjective measures. How do you feel on it? Do you feel like you had a good workout? How are the pumps? If the thing was advertised to be a pump, centric pre-workout or a pump focused pre-workout, how are your muscle pumps on it? Were you doing a style of training that was conducive to muscle pumps? If I'm going to take a pump pre-workout, but I'm only going to do sets of 3 and 5 and on, like a power building or powerlifting kind of day, you're not going to expect to get much of a big pump at all. You're going to have to do, higher repetition work. So do that, see how you feel on it. How was the mood enhancement? Did you feel good? Did it make you feel angry? Did you like that feeling if it made you feel angry? How was your sleep that night? Did the stims last too long? Was it too much caffeine? Did you have any trouble going to sleep? Did you have trouble calming down at the end of it? There's a lot of things to consider.
One thing I've noticed over the years is the highly individual reaction or interpretation of the effectiveness of a pre-workout.
Yeah.
I've taken, obviously I worked on Muscle and Strength and Tiger Fitness, and I've seen many pre-workouts come my way. Yep. Some pre-workouts that people love, I've taken, and it's been like, nothing. And then like I come across things like Pump and Grind, and which is something that is Chris Jones' workout, a pre-workout formulated and produced by Tiger Fitness. And I love this stuff. I mean, I absolutely love it. It's like, I don't know if it's, some of this is just like highly individualized, where we're at, our physiology. Is there something to that? Like, can a pre-workout suck for you and actually be pretty decent for me?
Oh yeah, that's definitely something to consider. I mean, there have been pre-workouts where I've taken it, I felt great. Sandy's taken it, she's felt nauseous. I mean, there's just certain ingredients in there that don't react well with certain people's physiology, and there's other things where some people, this especially gets into the weeds when you're dealing with nootropics. So depending on the ratio and what nootropics are put in there, so the kind of the ratio of like the choline donors like alpha GPC or CDP choline to huperzine to tyrosine to some of these other new age nootropics that we're starting to see kind of work their way into pre-workouts, teacrine, dynamine, the ratio they're lined up in, the dosages that they're put in, the amounts that they're used, they work really well for some people. They haven't worked really well for me in the past. Other people that I've talked to, they really like them. So it is going to take a little bit of, give and take, a little bit of touch and go to see how it works. But yeah, it makes complete sense that what works great for you may not always work great for, somebody else.
So a follow-up question to that is like right now, the average Joe is looking at us going, okay, great. What works for one guy doesn't work for another guy. And there's a million options out there. Yeah. And I want to try a few. Any suggestions, Robert, on how people can try a few of these pre-workouts without getting a second mortgage on their house? Are there a lot of samples available, or any suggestions at all?
Yeah, there are a lot. Most companies these days will do samples of pre-workout, and if you reach out to them on their Instagram or you email their website or something, their contact form on their website, they'll usually be willing to send you out a couple sample packets of it to try. Or if you like their protein powder but you've never messed with their pre-workouts, go ahead and order the protein from them or their creatine or something, and then just get some sample packs. Or the major big box retailers, if you don't want to deal directly with one brand and you want to kind of hit all the brands, go to one of the major internet retailers like bodybuilding.com, Muscle and Strength, Tiger Fitness, any of these guys. And then they'll usually have sample packs listed on their site, and you can buy 3, 4, 5 different ones. And they usually only cost, like $1 or $2 a piece, I want to say, most of the time. Maybe upwards of $3 for a scoop of pre-workout, but that's the same amount you're going to pay for an energy drink, so it's not like it's that big of an inconvenience.
All right, I want to talk about the fringe. There are guys out there in the fitness industry, in the lifting industry, that make, part of their shtick, part of their spiel is anytime the topic of supplements is brought up, they have one single answer. It's not needed. It's not needed. It's not needed. It's not needed. A pre-workout doesn't do shit. And I get, how I feel about black and white answers.
Yeah.
If you're standing in front of one of these fit-tards and they're screaming at the top of their lungs on their channel that pre-workouts aren't needed, Robert, what do you have to say to the person watching? What's a neutral, fair response to that screaming?
I mean, I would say just because they may not have worked for you, that doesn't mean it's a flat across the board that they won't work for anybody. We've got enough data showing that the individual ingredients do improve performance. So we know that creatine works. We know that caffeine improves exercise performance. The data on citrulline malate is a little bit more, diversified, but overall, we that's on that second tier of supplements that, hey, it does improve blood flow. It does help you bang out a couple of extra repetitions. And besides, a lot of people just look at the pre-workout as something to get them motivated to work out. So if you have a pre-workout, let's say it's got a completely neutral effect. Okay, let's assume that all pre-workouts are glorified caffeine powder. If looking forward to taking that serving of pre-workout motivates that person to get outside and get more physical activity in their life, who's going to argue with that? That's a good thing. So what? They're out $30. I would rather them spend the $30 on pre-workout than go, buy a bunch of ding-dongs, ho-hos, and McFlurries.
Right. Yeah, I was almost going to go there. I mean, like, people get so crazy about this stuff, and at the end of the day, it's like 50 cents a day, and people put more. People waste more money on, McDonald's and $8 million coffee drinks at Starbucks and all other kinds of bullshit.
Right.
And with the pre-workouts, at least there's some science behind it.
Mm-hmm.
And look, if you're training hard and you're training long, and you're in this for the lifetime. You're in this for the long haul. And like me, I run 10 hours a week. I lift 4 hours a day. I'm serious, right?
Yep.
What is the downside of spending 50 cents a day on something that might improve my performance or energy or give me a slight nudge, even if I don't even realize it? What's the downside, right?
Exactly. Couldn't have said it better, Steve.
So to those folks, I often say, and I'd like to hear your thoughts about this. When folks come to me about pre-workouts, they ask me, do I need to take them every day? And what I always say is I always keep a pre-workout in my bag. You know, it's like being a single man. You always keep a condom in your wallet, right? Just in case someone wants to mate with your ugly ass, which is highly unlikely because you're ugly. But you know, I always keep a pre-workout in my gym bag because for reasons like you said, if I feel like crap or just worn out, I'll take it. It's just like tossing a dice and a gamble. So the person that never takes a pre-workout, is there value in doing that? Do you find there's value in doing that?
Yeah, I mean, at worst, you're going to be out $30. Let's assume that the pre-workout has no effect. You're out $30. You're going to waste that money on something else, something more expensive anyway. It's not going to hurt. And you know, if we're going to be, you know, on the bright side of things, it may help you to push harder in your training. You know, it's not going to be this panacea that's going to fix everything that's wrong in your life. It's not going to make you gain 10 pounds of muscle on a single training session, but it may give you that added boost or may that extra little bit of energy and motivation and focus to train harder on those days when you may not just be feeling it.
All right, Robert, I've stole a half an hour of your time, but I'm gonna end cap this with one more question.
You got it.
Any trends in the pre-workout market that we need to pay attention to?
Oh man. There's a couple of trends that I'm just not a fan of that I've been seeing recently, and two of them are these calming agents. Like we'll see L-theanine put in there, and KSM-66, which is ashwagandha, so that's an adaptogen. There's one study showing that it might help improve exercise performance or resistance to fatigue because it combats some cortisol and stress markers in the body. But most of the time, when I see these two ingredients put into a pre-workout, it's just because I think it's an unbalanced stimulant profile. They put so much caffeine in there, they think they need to tamper it down with some of these calming agents. My line of thinking is, well, why don't you go back and reformulate the energy blend and get a more reasonable amount of caffeine or something that is giving you the benefits that you're looking for instead of putting in all these calming agents? Because virtually every time I take a pre-workout that's got this KSM-66 or ashwagandha or theanine in it, anytime, or CBD, I've seen that in a few pre-workouts. Anytime you put that in there, that does the exact opposite of what I want from my pre-workout. I want my pre-workout to energize me, to almost kick me in the teeth on most occasions. And when you put all these calming agents in there, I feel flat. I feel unmotivated. I don't really want to go and do much of anything. And then, you know, that's my personal reactivity to those kind of ingredients, like we were talking about before. Other trends, escalating caffeine doses. We kind of see caffeine continually trickling up. Even a couple of years ago, 300 milligrams was considered like the hardcore line. Now It's like 350, 400. A couple of pre-workouts have breached like the 500 or 600 milligram tier. That's another trend. You'll also start to see maybe nitrosogene starting to work in there as kind of a replacement ingredient for citrulline or citrulline malate. I think that's about it as far as major trends in there.
All right. Thanks, Robert. I appreciate you joining me. Guys, if you have any questions, you can find Robert, the Supplement Engineer, on Instagram. He has a Supplement Engineer podcast. You can slide over to his DM on Instagram and send him a follow-up question if you want. And again, a link down below if you need a supplement assessment. If you want to know if what you're paying for is good or bad, this is a good service. A lot of my folks are using it. They're starting to use it because Robert's on my channel every Friday. And, you know, it's really helping people to refine the money they spend on supplements. So check that out. I will say Robert's on my channel every Friday, live video, 11 a.m. Eastern. He will not be on tomorrow because I have something very special that I am announcing tomorrow. So tune back in for that. And Robert, any last words on the pre-workout subject, on the subject of pre-workouts?
If you're not used to using pre-workouts, start on the lower end of caffeine and go wisely. There's no need to double scoop a pre-workout typically. Start on the low end. There's a bunch of quality options out on there. There is no best. If you're looking for something to try, shoot me a message and I'll give you a list of a few of my favorites. And thank you as always, Steve, for the privilege of speaking with you and being on your channel.
All right. Thanks, Robert. And I appreciate everybody watching. Thanks, guys, and have a great day.